All projects begin with a slip knot, and I'm going to show you two ways to do that. The first way, I'm going to talk about the ends of the yarn. You have a tail end here, which is the beginning end of the yarn, and the working tail, and that's the yarn that's coming from the skein. So you're going to form this into a pretzel shape. So you turn it like so, making a little pretzel. All right, with your tail end there, pick up your hook and insert it underneath this loop in the middle of that pretzel. And with your left hand, hold on to both ends of the yarn and pull it to make a loop. Pull on both ends right up to the shaft of the crochet hook. Don't pull it too tightly, just enough that it's right around the hook like that. Then the second way, which is the way I usually do it, is by taking the working end of the yarn coming from the ball of yarn, wrapping it around 2 fingers on your right hand, bring it around and pull the yarn, the working yarn, through the center like so, grabbing it with your left hand. Drop your fingers, and it's the same loop that you did with the pretzel, just using your hands. So then you pick up your hook, insert it into the loop, and pull on both ends until it fits around your crochet hook. And there you have a slip knot. Once you have the slip knot on your hook, you can work the foundation chain. With the yarn held in your left hand, the working yarn, and make sure it's the working yarn and not the tail end, because if you use the tail end, when you get to the end, you won't have enough yarn. That's something that people tend to do, and so you just make sure that you're not using the tail end. You want the long end coming from the ball. Wrap the yarn any way you'd like around your left hand. We're going to do a yarn around the hook. So you're going to put the yarn underneath your hook like that. Grab with your left hand the tail end of the yarn and kind of hold onto that slip knot there. And with the hook, you're going to pull that yarn through the loop on the hook, and you've made one foundation chain. You're going to continue in that same way. Bring the yarn under, the hook under the yarn, holding on to that chain that you've made with your left hand. Grab that yarn with the hook and pull it through the loop that's on the hook. Now you want to remember to not make this chain too tight, because otherwise it will make that first row difficult to go into. So let's just keep going. We're going to chain 15. I've already done 2. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, and as you're going, move your hand up the chain. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now remember, I said I had 14 single crochet on my gauge swatch. You'll notice that I chained 15, even though I'm going to be working 14 single crochet. That's because the last chain that you worked does not count as a stitch. Next, you're going to work a row of single crochet into this foundation chain. So as you can see, here is the last chain that you made, so you're going to skip that chain. This here looks like a little V. These chain stitches look like V's going in here. You're going to insert your crochet hook right in the middle of that V and put it through the loop. And the other thing to note here is that you're going to have 2 strands on top of that hook to make sure you've gone through the chain correctly. Just as you were chaining before, you're going to put the hook under the yarn, grab it, and pull it through the loop. So on the hook we have the last stitch that we chained and a new loop on the hook. So there are 2 loops on the hook. Now you're going to bring your hook under the yarn again and pull it through both loops on hook. So now you only have 1 loop on your hook. The whole way across the row you only have 1. After you've finished your single crochet, you will have 1 loop on the hook. So now let's insert it into the next chain. As before, into the V, making sure you go through both loops. Pull the yarn through. You now have 2 loops on your hook, and you can pull down a bit on your work like that so that the loops are nice and loose to pull the yarn through both loops. You have a second crochet, single crochet made, and you continue in that way across the entire row. Now this first row is always the trickiest and the hardest to do. Don't be frustrated, just keep going, and once you get that first row of single crochet done, it will be so much easier after that. And sometimes you have to push it through a little hard, but that's okay. Another thing is make sure you have enough yarn pulled out from the ball. You want to have enough flack here, so if it's too tight, if it's hard coming from the ball, it will make your stitches tight as well. So always have plenty of extra yarn pulled out from the ball. So you keep going across. Into each chain. Again, hold this chain with your left hand to pull it out so you can see exactly where you're going into the stitches. And if you pull it, it's a little easier to get your hook through. Oh, as you see, I split a stitch there, so let's take that out and do it again. So I'm going to go into the full stitch, bring it through and around. So now I'm at the last chain. Note that this slip knot, this knot at the end here, does not count. So I'm going to insert it into the chain, and there we go. Let me pull it through, and we have our first row of single crochet. Next, you have to turn your work. You turn it around like so, and again making sure that you have the working yarn, not the end yarn, and you're going to chain 1 just as you did as the foundation chain. You're going to yarn over the hook and pull it through, and that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. It just gives it the height so that when you go back working over the row, it doesn't slant. It just makes a nice even edge. So now you're going to do your second row of single crochet. Turn the work around, you see V's again, looking similar to the crochet chain, the foundation chain. Insert your hook into the first single crochet. If you look here, you've got the V on top of the hook. You've gone through both loops of that V. You're going to wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook again and bring it through both loops. You'll find that going through the single crochet stitches is so much easier than going through the chains because the single crochet is looser. Go into the second single crochet in the same way, front to back, through the V, yarn over, pull it through, and through both loops on the hook. And into the next single crochet. Around, pull it through both loops on hook. Insert it into the single crochet stitch. I always like to look and see, make sure that that V's right there. Pull it through and yarn over through 2 loops. Continue making your swatch by turning at the end of every row, chain 1, and working your single crochet across each row. Keep going in this way until you have the desired number of rows in your swatch.